pamphlet itself, and we're going to be completing the middle section, but I want to talk a little bit about our vocabulary first, because some of the vocabulary there you're going to have to answer and you're going to have to look back to find the words. So what is an ecologist? What is an ecologist? Well, in the last chapter we were studying what? What was the name of the last chapter that we studied? Chapter 5 was, I'm sorry?
A paleontologist?
Oh, paleontologists were people that studied fossils, but what was the topic of the whole chapter? Chris?
A biologist?
A biologist is somebody that studies biology, which is life, so living things. Ecologist studies ecosystems. Very good. And so it's not just life, but it's how living and non-living things interact. So a biologist just studies living things. An ecologist goes a little bit deeper, and they study living things and how they interact. And so Rachel Carson was what we call an ecologist. What does the word alarmed mean? If you were alarmed about something, use it in a sentence. Leah.
I can use it really in a sentence, but it's like surprise.
Okay, it's surprise, but more than surprise. So surprise would be, oh, I'm surprised that you wore that dress today. You were usually kind of happy, or you were having kind of neutral. Alarmed is something not neutral. It's something usually a little bit, what?
Strange.
A little strange, okay. Maybe strange, yes. I'm sorry? Worried. Alarmed is a good way to say worried. That you're alarmed, you're upset by, you're disturbed by something, okay? So you're worried about something. What about the word awareness? What does it mean to bring awareness to something? To have an awareness. Yes?
Caution.
Caution, okay, what do you think?
To be prepared.
To be prepared. Not prepared. Gio?
I am aware about that.
Okay, so it's how you see something, how you perceive a situation. How do you view something is your awareness. I'm aware of something is how I view something. How about the word pesticide? What is pesticide? Yes?
Pesticide is like a chemical you start to get rid of.
Very good. So remember when we did the Reader's Theater, we talked about pesticides and how they were a chemical that got rid of pests. Another word for that is insecticide. Did anybody hear in the video that they also called it an herbicide? What do you think an herbicide is? If a pesticide and an insecticide get rid of pests and insects, what does an herbicide get rid of? I'll write it here so you can see how it's spelled. Herbicide. Herbicide. It gets rid of herbs. But do you think you would spray an herbicide on, I'm going to spray my oregano, which is an herb, with an herbicide because I want to kill it? Do you think you're going to be trying to get rid of other herbs? What are you trying to get rid of?
Plants.
Plants. And what specifically is the type of plant that we don't want in our garden? Or you don't want in your crop?
Weeds.
Weeds. And so an herbicide is a chemical that kills weeds. It doesn't necessarily kill others. You may have heard of Roundup. How many people have heard of Roundup before? Okay, so Roundup is something that is actually in the news now because it used to have a really bad chemical in it, and it would make people very sick. And so they had to change the formula of it because it was kind of like DDT was back in the 1960s. It had a chemical in it that was making people very, very sick. So an herbicide is something that kills plants. Pesticide kills bugs or pests. How about the word impact? What does the word impact mean? If you could tell me in a sentence, what does it mean? I think you could do it. Try it.
Like to have an effect on something?
Okay, but tell me this in a sentence. Impact. What has had an impact on you? Gio?
Can you do it fake?
Sure.
Mickey Mouse impact me with presents. Wait.
I'm not sure that would make sense.
Ooh. I know something.
Okay, Leah, give us a sentence with the word impact.
Coronavirus was a big impact.
Oh, very good. That's excellent.
Wow.
Coronavirus had an impact, the pandemic had an impact on the whole world globally. Very good. That's an excellent way to use the word impact. Unfortunately, right? So, impact is to have an effect on something. So what we're going to do for this section is in the middle of your pamphlet, you're going to notice that there's some vocabulary words, there's a timeline, and there's fill in the blanks. So I'm going to show you how to fold your paper. And then once you fold your paper, we're going to read the part about Rachel Carson and the part about Silent Spring. And then you're going to go back and answer those questions and put those dates and things in order. Does that make sense? All right, take your paper like this. Okay? So you have vocabulary in the middle. You're going to take your left hand and you're going to fold it over so you can see Rachel's face and go just line it up with the line. And then you're going to put a crease down the side. See how we did that? Okay. The second one is you're going to open it up and you're going to take this side and you're going to fold it over until you reach the next line. And so when you have your trifold brochure, her name will be on the front. The inside will have the part about Rachel Carson. The outside will have this part about Silent Spring. And then when you open it up, it will have the vocabulary and this part about writing a letter. We're going to do that part another day, but we're just going to do this part today. Okay, so right now I want everybody to be like this on your desk. Does everybody have it like this? So you're going to open it up so you can see the 2 pages. Open it up so you can see the 2 pages. So the first part's about Rachel Carson. I want you to raise your hand when you hear an answer to one of the questions. So for example, the questions on the fill of the blank are, Rachel Carson was a writer, a scientist, and a, who knows what they can write in there? Excellent. Rachel worked for the U.S. Bureau of, we don't know, but it's in the reading. Okay? Silent Spring was an international what? You're going to listen for that in the reading. So when you hear it read, you're going to raise your hand. Silent Spring talked about the use of, do you know the answer to that one already? I think you should. Rachel testified before. Who did she testify? I want to talk a little bit about the word testify. Testimony, or to testify, is to talk in front of a court or the Congress or a group of people. So sometimes you testify, like for example, how many people heard our Supreme Court Justice get confirmed? Did you hear that we have a new Supreme Court Justice? So she had to go in front of a panel of people and answer questions. So just like if you were going to be tried for a crime and you were having to go to court, you would have to go in front of a judge or a jury and you'd have to give your testimony. That's what the word testify means. So let's open to where it says read about Rachel Carson. We're going to open our papers like this. So Rachel Carson was a writer, scientist, and an ecologist who considered to be the founder of the environmental movement. She was born on May 27th of 1907 in Springdale, Pennsylvania. She graduated from the Pennsylvania College for Women in 1928 and received a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University in 1932. Rachel was raised as a lover of nature. In 1936, she took a job with the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries. Did you hear one of the answers?
Yeah.
She worked as a writer and a scientist for the government. During the time she wrote the articles and books, in 1952, she won a prize for her book, The Sea Around Us, which was a study of the ocean. As Rachel studied North American nature, she became alarmed about the use of chemicals in agriculture. Remember that alarm means upset, okay, disturbed, angry, bothered by something. In 1962, she wrote about the situation in her book, Silent Spring. The book became an international bestseller and raised public awareness about the use of pesticides. Rachel was attacked by chemical companies, but she nevertheless persevered, testifying before Congress about the environmental damage caused by these chemicals. Her book and her testimony helped to bring about massive changes to help the environment. Rachel Carson died of breast cancer in 1964 in Silver Spring, Maryland. Fortunately for us, the impact of her work and dedication lives on. So did you hear some of the answers to those questions? So if you didn't, you'll scan the paragraphs and you'll look back. You'll scan them and look back when you go to answer the questions. All right, let's look at the next page that says Silent Spring.
My great grandma, there's a school named after her.
Rachel Carson, did she go there?
I don't know, but there's a school that's named after my great grandma.
Oh, that's pretty cool. In Silver Spring, you think, or no?
No.
Yeah.
In Annapolis.
What did your great grandma do?
I don't know.
You'll have to find out.
She was just famous for something.
Because that's cool. We'll have to find out what she's famous for. That's awesome. Yes.
My mom, my aunt, and my grandpa and my grandma are all lawyers.
Awesome.
And so they went to court many times.
Very cool. Okay, let's take a look where it says Silent Spring. Silent Spring was published on September 27th of 1962. And at that time, chemicals were widely used in agriculture to kill insects and weeds. In her book, Rachel taught the public how to use these chemicals. Pesticides and herbicides was causing severe environmental damage. The chemicals not only were dangerous to humans, but they also killed insects and birds, thus the title of Silent Spring. DDT was being used extensively during that time, despite its poisonous nature. The book raised the public awareness, and Congress began to hold hearings about the situation. Rachel Carson was vehemently attacked by chemical companies, but she nevertheless held her ground. What is the word vehemently? The word vehemently, it's a very strong word. What do you think the word vehemently means? It's a very powerful word. Yes?
It's very, so it says
vehemently
attacked by chemicals, so it's kind of like all of the time came at the same time?
All of them came at the same time is a great way to explain that. Vehemently means that they did it with what? Force. That they did it with power, they did it with force, and that they really went after her character. That they were very upset with the fact that she was talking about what they did. You know what, another example of that? Back in the, probably in the 80s and 90s, it came out that smoking was bad for you. Like before that, a lot of people smoked, like 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of people smoked cigarettes. And it came out that they'd done these studies that they said there's chemicals in these cigarettes that are going to cause cancer, and it's horrible. And the people that worked for the cigarette companies were like, don't release that information, don't tell people that, they'll stop buying cigarettes. And they attacked the people that did the studies. Well, over time, people realized that they were wrong, and then they had to put a label on cigarettes and things that says may cause cancer, because they have to tell people now that the ingredients in there are bad for you. So the same concept happened with Rachel Carson, that people had to point out that what she was doing was hurting other people, that this chemical was hurting people that ate. Like if you ate a stalk of corn that was sprayed with DDT, you would then get some of that bad chemical in your system, and you could potentially get sick. Yes?
My grandpa was smoking, and then he got surgery because of smoking.
Did he? Yeah. It's not good. And a long time ago, probably when your grandfather was young, he didn't know that, because it didn't come out until later that it was actually bad for you, and they were already addicted. They had formed a habit that was a bad habit, and that way they didn't know at the time when they did it that it was bad for you. And now people know. Yes.
My grandpa died of cancer.
Yeah. Did he smoke, or did he get exposed to smoke growing up? Yeah. Yes.
My grandpa smoked, but not a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like so high.
Yep. Okay, so on the word vehemently, we're on the third paragraph there. Rachel Carson was vehemently attacked by chemical companies, but she nevertheless held her ground. Silent Spring went on to become the inspiration for creating the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in 1970. In 1972, the use of DDT was banned for agricultural use. The ban was a major factor in the comeback of many endangered birds, such as the bald eagle, the peregrine falcon, both of which had almost become extinct. So Rachel created or was the inspiration for a company called the Environmental Protection Agency. And they're a company that's run by the government that protects to make sure our environment is healthy. So they look at things like our water quality and our air quality and our animals being killed, and are there sea turtles that are becoming extinct? Are there boating accidents that are causing problems with dolphins or manatees? So the EPA is a company that protects, it's an organization of the government that protects the environment. My brother, I know I've told you before, there's 5 children in my family. I'm one of 5, so I have 4 siblings. My oldest brother, Frank, works for the EPA. He works in Charleston, and does anyone want to guess what his job is? He's not a scientist.
He works with animals.
He doesn't work with animals.
Okay.
Anyone want to guess?
He helps keep clean the environment.
No. He does help keep clean the environment by what he does, by making something that helps people be aware of the environment. What do you think his job is? What do you think?
A beekeeper?
No.
Maybe he makes pamphlets about how chemicals are bad.
Ah, very good. So he's actually an artist, and he is a digital artist. So he can draw and paint and do all kinds of things artistically, but he designs things. So he does a lot of the graphics and the writing and the drawing that goes into posters and PowerPoints and presentations and signage in big companies, or signage to go on the side of the road to tell you about things. So I will see if we can Skype him sometime, or we can FaceTime him, and you can ask him some questions about the EPA. I know he's worked there for a very long time. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah.
Can you show us with his art?
He can. I don't have any right now. I mean, the only thing I have is like pictures that he shared with me, but I don't have anything. But I could have him share some art. Yeah, that would be fun. Yes.
Does he also work at a bakery?
No.
There's a lot of bakeries in Charleston.
Charleston's a great place to eat, right? They have all kinds of good food there. I like to go visit.
In South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Well, you've never been?
I'm sorry?
I've never been.
It's fun. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is what you're working on. You're going to go ahead and complete the vocabulary, the timeline, you're looking for specific dates, and the fill in the blank. Now I want you to look over at the section over here on the left-hand side. Does everybody see the section on the left?
Yeah.
It says, my letter to Rachel Carson. Tomorrow we're going to complete this. So I want you to don't write on that section over there, my letter to Rachel Carson, because we're going to do that later this week.